All right. So it's 2:45. Everybody asleep yet? I just changed my shoes from my walking around. It's really fucking cold in New York into my heels, and I kind of felt like Mr. Rogers, which is the first time in my life I've ever felt like Mr. Rogers. I didn't see that coming. Anyway, I thought I'd show you some LOLcats for some fun, because it's the middle of the afternoon and everybody's tired. I worked at Cheezburger for a year, so I kind of feel like I have a lifetime free pass to use LOLcats even when they're completely not relevant in any way whatsoever. I have a civic responsibility to share my favorite LOLcats that I collected. This is if anybody was here for Jason Griggs's presentation, and he always tries to include the picture of the naked man on the toilet outside of his mobile home. This is my naked man on the toilet picture. Anyway. So, I'd like to just show you LOLcats for 45 minutes, and I keep proposing to, conference organizers that they just let me, surf Twitter and look at LOLcats. Somehow that never gets accepted, so. Anyway, we're going to do the slides I've prepared. 13 signs your UX needs an exorcism. This is a 101. If there are any veteran UX people in the audience, this is not intended to be hard and fast rules. Rules are there to be broken, but you have to know what they are before you can break them. So I wanted to talk about the things that people say that give me a clue that they're about to make a really bad decision. These sentences, they fly out of people's mouths, and they give me the moment of, oh, something has gone very badly wrong. So these are my collection. And the first one, it seems really innocuous, and some of them do. I've got this really great idea for a site. There's a graveyard of sites that you all look at them and you go, why did anybody build this? What happened here? How did anybody put time into this? One of the most important things that I think is my job at Mozilla is to make sure that all of the work that we do is valuable, users understand, and they care about the site that we're building. So how do you answer that question? There's a lot of prep work that should go into a site before you ever write your first line of code. If you're a coder, I know your first inclination is to go, I'm going to go spin up a Ruby on Rails. I can have a site by this afternoon, and it'll be great. But there's actually an enormous amount of work that should go into deciding what you're going to build before you ever get started. I don't want the graveyard of sites to exist. The second, and very related, is I got this really great idea for a feature. I want to do this, and then when the, QA people and coders especially are really good often at thinking of these little edge cases, but it would be really cool if when I was in the middle of logging in, creating an account with the site, and I got halfway through and I didn't click the verification email, and then I went back to the site and we got this weird error condition, sweet, you're an awesome QA person. A UX person is not looking at it from those tiny little corner cases. They're looking at it from, how can I make the most efficient, simplest experience that's going to resonate with the biggest group of people that's possible. So we've got this tension between features and UI. Because the more features you add, the more complex your UI is going to necessarily have to be. You've got things that are very low feature set and very low UI complexity that are completely valid niche. There's sites all along that orange line that are completely, they have a business model, they make sense, people care about them, they love them, all on that orange line. Things like, what the fuck should I make for dinner? It does one thing. There's no button on it. It just does one thing. It's great. There's a reason for it to live. There are people that love it. all the way to things in the middle like Tumblr that existed to make publishing a little bit easier. It doesn't do everything, but it doesn't do everything by design. That's the point. And all the way up in the top right-hand corner, like New York Times, that is trying to present to you an enormous amount of information. And how they structure it, how they deliver it to you, is extremely well thought through because they have, every author that's writing an article wants to see that get to the right people. So every time you're adding a feature, keep in mind that you're going to have to add UI complexity to that. There are some sort of magic sites that have, they are not on the orange line. They've actually managed to have features that did not introduce UI complexity. And this is the degree to which you can move off of the orange line is the degree to which your site feels like magic. It just magically worked. Like, I don't know how that just happened, but holy shit, that was really cool. And then on the other side, if you have not that many features, but your UI is really complicated, your site's not gonna be nearly as likely to succeed. All right, number 3. Let's put a sentence under the button to explain. Explaining interfaces, it's not a good business to get into. You don't move the steering wheel on your car to the ceiling and then put a sentence underneath it to say that you should use this to drive your car. You should follow the patterns that make sense for all these other, car manufacturers have figured out that steering wheels, they go right in front of you, they're like this. And if you're going to break that pattern, you should not document it. You should have a really good reason for doing it. You should test the shit out of it. And if you do indeed figure out that putting the steering wheel on the roof of the car would be so fantastic and would make us all really, really good drivers and we'd slow down because we couldn't see the road, then you should have an enormous amount of testing. You'd be completely confident that this should be the new pattern. Explaining is just bad business. Okay, so this word relates very intimately. What we're doing here is so novel. We're doing a brand new thing. Nobody's ever done this. Nobody's ever made a website, everything. We can't follow anybody else's example because we have to have our own creative, like our competitive advantage, our, this edge. So it's really seductive to think that what you're doing is really novel. But what it leads you into doing is not looking around at your competitors. If you don't have competitors, you probably aren't looking hard enough. I bet you do have competitors. People are solving the problem in some way. Maybe they're duct taping solutions together in some way, but there is a solution. If it's a real problem, there already are solutions. They may be duct taped together, but you should go and see what those are. And in terms of the UI, there are lots of pattern libraries out there. This is a little chunk of the Yahoo pattern library. Avail yourselves of these things. There's absolutely no reason that you should be reinventing common UI elements. Twitter has a great GitHub repository called Bootstrap that has fantastic, like if every website just started with something like that, Bootstrap, it would be, it would be like when you have a framework like Ruby. We know you're going to need error handling. We know you're going to need pagination. We know you're going to need button styles. So start with these, and if you want to tweak it from there, then that's cool, but at least you'll start with a sane sort of set of defaults. Number 5, I think the button should be on the right. I think is a really bad way to make decisions. And I'm going to hammer this and hammer it and hammer it, which is test your designs. Test, test, test your designs. It's not like you're going to get to the end of this list and not need to test your designs because you'll be so smart. It's not like once you're like a really super pro, competent designer, you don't need to test your designs. Especially pros test their designs. That's what makes you a pro. I'm just going to back up and say one more thing about testing. If you're not testing things, you end up with these I think arguments, and they can be really ugly. They can be really, really bad because on questions like, well, is this a feature that most people are going to use? In Mozilla, we use a rubric of 80-20-2, because 100% is just not enough. There are features that 80% of the users are going to use, features that 20% of the users are going to use, and then there's the 2% that are the super power users. And we use those breakpoints to make decisions in the product about what pieces of UI we put where. And if you are a 2% feature, you don't make it into the top navigation bar. You're not going to be anywhere in the menus. You might have to open up some really ugly, janky config file or do something like that you type with text that's terrible. But the reason that you do those things is because you have to optimize the path for the 80%. And every feature that, this is back to the feature thing, every feature that you add adds complexity for everyone. So if you're optimizing this path for the 80%, the only way you can do that is by cutting stuff out. Cut. We're not going to do this. We're not going to do that. And then for the 20%, it's OK to still build those features. But it's, if those are a little bit jankier, the flows are longer, things are a little bit weirder and hard, it's OK that you would do that for the 20%. In order that the 80% cases would work much more streamlined. And then the question becomes, well, this feature that I have a great idea for, is it an 80%? I think it's an 80% use case. Somebody else could say, well, I think it's a 20% use case. So I think it's a 2% use case. You get into these nasty I think battles, and often the hippos win the I think battles. The highest paid opinions win them. So if you're not making decisions with data, the highest paid opinion on your team is often going to win the I think battles. If you're not making decisions with data, it can be vulnerable to political maneuverings and machinations, and then nobody wins. Nobody's happy. So beware of the I think battles. Number 6 is, I don't want the user to do the thing they want to do. Of course, this is not the verbatim things that come out of somebody's mouth when they're this is the paraphrase of the thing that they're saying. And this is sort of a weird one to put your finger on. So I'm going to give you an example. This is Google's help interface for Gmail. God help you, I hope you've never had to use it. I'm going to let you look at it for just a second and see if you can have some suspicions of what the most clicked element is on this page. Trick question, it's down in the footer. Contact us. There's some smart folks in here. This tiny little, in the footer, 11-point gray text, contact us, generates more clicks than anything else on the page. Thousands of clicks every day, thousands of emails from this. And I don't really, I can see them making this decision. We've given them this beautiful self-service help system. It's got all the answers they need. We don't want to do email support. We want them to find the information out on their own. And God, we don't want to answer emails. Why do we have to do this? So let's hide it for users. And this actually comes up often, and it's always a business problem. So now I'm a UX designer, and I'm facing business problems because it's trickled down to me, and there's no way I can fix this as a UX designer. I can't fix this UI without fixing the business problem. You have to have, there's a giant conversation about hiring more staff, and all the solution is never in the UI, is the message. This is their AdWords page. One of my colleagues told me this story. He's now on our team. We stole him. And he was a big proponent of making the processes and improving it so that people could actually email. And now they have a bright yellow email support for their AdWords, and I'm hoping that they will roll it out for all of their things. Maybe we need an FAQ. This one is always a sign that something has gone terribly wrong. This is sort of uttered in a sigh. Well, maybe we need to have a queue. And it means we realize we did a bad job. We didn't provide the information to the users, and they're not finding what they need, damn it. So let's just put all the stuff in an FAQ, and they can find it, which means they're not finding it elsewhere. FAQs mean that you've given up. You should put your information in the place that your users need it, when they need it, where they need it, in bite-sized little bits. So please don't make FAQs. I decided that as my example, I would use the very first page when I Googled FAQ, whatever the first thing that popped up was. This will be fun. Well, let's see what it is. It's the Copyright Office, because that's a really easy subject to get your brain around. Obviously, somebody at the Copyright Office said, this is really hard. We should kind of just make it easier. And this is what they came up with. It's not right for a big site like Copyright. Am I all messed up?
Sweater. Sweater's feet. Okay. If FAQs aren't right for a large site, maybe they're right for small sites. That's not true either, because if you have a small site and you don't have very many features, then you shouldn't have a very complex interface, as we saw from our lovely little chart. So I don't think that there's any scale of site that an FAQ makes sense for. Number 8, can we just pop up a confirm dialog? This happens when there's some interface item that people recognize as dangerous, or you've had user complaints from, users are doing something and they're like, what is going on? I didn't mean to do that. And then smart other people will say, let's just ask them to confirm it. This one was just a couple days ago. I was using a site, Optimal Workshop, and the thing that makes me the most mad about this example is that they know what the answer is. Deleting a survey task cannot be undone. Are you sure you want to delete this task? They know that they should be supporting undo. Read the sentence. It says, it cannot be undone. It was like, we know we should let you undo it, but we're not letting you undo it. So just don't mess up. Be careful where you click. And if you look in this example, you can see that the thing that you click to get this is a little red delete button, and it's just a few pixels away from the edit button. So I'm sure that they saw like people were accidentally clicking delete instead of edit, so they put this thing up as the solution. The solution. This is not the solution. Make it undoable. Like still, once they click delete, it can do a little Ajax transition, and all that text can go away, and it will turn into a little undo thing, and you have, like 10 seconds or 20 seconds where you can still click the undo button. Let's split this up into different steps so it seems smaller. How about make it smaller? That's a good idea. I'm going to pick on Mozilla now since I picked on Google. This is a site that we have that lets you put a banner on your website so you can promote Firefox. Woohoo! And this, I'm just going to blame contractors, all right? Pick a category. Step 2, pick a banner. Step 3, configure and post. And when I was talking to them to do a UX audit, they're like, I think we need to put a 4th step. For what? Well, then they have to do something, like they have to go to Kansas, or I don't know what they had to do that needed a 4th step, but I almost cried because these sorts of things don't set user expectations appropriately. Don't snooker users. It just doesn't work. You can't snooker users. It doesn't make it feel any shorter. We've all seen these things on e-commerce sites where you have to confirm that you have the right information, and then you have to give shipping information, and then you have to give payment information, and that's like a lot of fields. And we're pretty sure we need all those fields. Like we really did need them all. So that makes sense to have a 3-step wizard. But for the most part, don't make steps. And even if you really do have to make these different steps, don't number them, because error conditions make you not actually, you're never going to deliver on page 1, 2, 3 anyway. They're always going to be like, oh, but you forgot your password, and so now you have to do this, and now it's 5 steps, but you can't update it. So it's just craziness. Don't do it. Figure out what that list of things is that you need to get the user to accomplish their task. Minimize it, minimize it, minimize it, minimize it as much as possible. I think it's Luke Wroblewski's book shows that if you only ask the users for a very small amount of information, say, yes, confirmed, you did it, fantastic. Now there are some optional things that you give us that will make your life better, that you get more information anyway. So no snookering users. By the way, this is the redesign. We went from that crazy to like, oh, now go get a button. Dook, it's yours. All right, number 10. Make it red so it really stand out. You know, users are not seeing this button. I don't know why they're not seeing it. Make it red, make it bigger, like bad things, Don't do this. Red is an important color in every designer's life. You must learn about red, the birds and the bees. It's in our biology. It's in our amygdala that red is an important color. Our eyes can't look away. We see it because we see blood. We see, you know, there's all these thousands of years of biology that you should not ignore. You should be completely respectful of the user's attention. And red should be used for critical system errors. Like, their rats got in the server and everything blew up and we don't know what happened. Sweet, make that red. Anything that is preventing the user from completing the task that they're currently on. So error fields, those are really great things to use red for. And because those things are so important for the user to see when they've omitted their middle name and their language of origin, and that you have to have that for their whatever thing that you're doing, we really want to get them to see that as quickly as possible. So don't use red for anything else on your site. But what if you're, you know, like Ohio State University and your mascot's red, or your Chrome and your logo is red? It's hard for me to look at this page, to be quite honest. I think it's pretty. It's a good visual design, cutting edge, you know, maybe like hits their market segment, and is a success from that standpoint. But from a UX standpoint, it's really falling apart in some ways. So I'm going to show you their checkout page. And you tell me how many errors I made when I fill it out. All right, how many saw 0 errors? 1 error, 2 errors, 3 errors, more than 3 errors. Okay, I'm going to show you my redesigned version. Okay, how many saw 0 errors? 1 error, 2 errors, 3 errors. I showed you the second design for half the time. The first slide was for 3 seconds. Second slide was for 1.5 seconds. You know, if you're using red, because you really have to use red, you need to use yellow for errors and not use yellow for anything else. You have to reserve the color that you use for errors. And I'm doing a double highlighting with, I actually changed the label color, the border color, and I bolded the error text. So do that. And I just want to say, I want to take a little bit of an aside about these sort of UX polish level issues. They're often really difficult for me to get implemented in all the different projects I've ever worked on. I go make the mock-up, write the ticket, assign it, get it in the milestone, like, all right, guys, we got to get this UX polish bug. It has to be done. And they're hard to get. It's hard for me to get developers motivated on these things. And I'm sure that it's because they're really boring little bugs. There's no programming challenge about it. It's not interesting. There's no math. There is nothing at all remotely sexy about picking this bug up and doing it. But please do it. Like, these issues may seem really small, and you're like, oh, it's just a dumb error field. But they can actually cause just massive losses in your conversion. So back to point number 1, why are we building this site in the first place? I hope you know the answer to that question on your project, and I hope you really love whatever it is that you're doing. You're passionate about making your users successful, so that you will be committed to picking up bugs like this that are totally just like, I'm going to drink a beer and do this at the same time. Like, I don't care what you're doing while you're making my bug happen, but go pick it up. Okay, and then there's an entire category of things that I don't see talked about at all. So when you're building a project, I see the whole business needs, user needs, technical needs, triad. Business needs are like marketing and HR and having a business model, making money, that stuff is important. And then technical needs, is this possible? Can we write this code? Can browsers support this? All this sort of questions. And then user needs are their own circle of stuff. And each of those groups of people sees through a different lens, sees completely different problems. The business sees people who are like, that's a great idea, it's totally feasible and users will love it, but it is illegal and we can't do it. So they might bring up some issues that totally call a halt to whatever it is that you wanted to do. From my bit of the little triangle, I see other problems that nobody else is seeing. And a good bit of being a good UX designer is convincing people that the problem even exists. It's much easier for a lawyer to say, it's totally illegal. You can't make Mickey Mouse pillows and sell them online. You're going to get sued out of existence. So as a UX designer, you need to be able to make a similarly compelling case about why this thing is even a problem in the first place. So here are these problems in big chunks that I often have to convince people are a problem. Navigation. Navigation and site structure. Site structure first. You get going on a project, you're building, you make your home page, you make your detail page, blah, blah, blah. And then as things get more complex, the flow that you had actually may be the problem. So instead of documenting putting the sentence under the button, sometimes you just need to flip the order of steps, or you need to move something onto its own page, or you need to make it a modal, or you need to make it a tooltip. Like, all the way that stuff plays with each other is hard and it's not obvious. So reevaluate as you make your site bigger. And then navigation is, navigation should be mutually exclusive. It should be jargon-free, and it should organize your site in the way that your customers think about it. Signs that you have done your navigation incorrectly are that your navigation mirrors the org chart if you're in a big organization. If you have a category here, and it's all the things that marketing is responsible for, and then you have a category here, and it's all the stuff that your engineering department is, like, I don't know what particular organization is, but if it is the same, and you can see like, oh yeah, David, he's the manager of all these pages, and like Jane manages all these pages, you didn't actually take your users' needs into account. You didn't talk to users. I would say you didn't make the decision with nearly as much data or as persuasively as you needed to. Making a navigation means that you go and you talk to users and you figure out what the top tasks are. You figure out why they're coming to your site in the first place. And the ways to answer those questions are in your search analytics, which are in your internal search tool, if you have one. They're also in your Google Analytics, what search terms lead to your site. And you can use those things to generate a data-based list of top tasks. And then you push those into another tool, card sort. They're really great. There's like a book over there, a whole book about card sorting, and it's sweet. You can figure out what users, how they logically group those things into categories, and what they call those things. Because copy is really important. It's attractive to want to come up with your own trade names of stuff. They Google well, there are certain things, but it's not an appropriate thing to use those as headlines and especially navigation, because your users just don't know what they mean, chances are. If you're McDonald's, they know what that means. But if you're not McDonald's, if you don't have a trade name that's that well established, then you have to just use dictionary words. It's not sexy, it's not like fun, but it actually gets people to where they're using, where they're actually trying to go to use your website. So, again, I'm gonna pick on Mozilla. Get add-ons, this is our add-on page. Extensions, appearance, and plugins. Does anybody in the entire audience know the difference between an extension and a plugin? We got one. Anybody else? I have no idea. I work there. I have no idea what the difference between an extension and a plugin is. I've been trying to figure out the answer to this question, and I still don't know. I know there's a page where you can go check your plugins, and it doesn't check your extensions. It seems like it would, but it doesn't. This is an example of implementation level jargon. It's probably dead obvious to a developer of extensions why their thing is an extension, why it's not a plugin. But that level of implementation level jargon should never make it through to an interface like this that's intended to be shown to every level of technical ability user. And then the other thing about copy is this is an eye tracking study of several different sites that shows the F-shaped reading pattern. It's really important to load those dictionary keywords to the top and to the front of every, the line of everything. If you have a headline, you should cut off everything except for the first 2-3 words. And if the first 2-3 words don't give you a sense of what you're even talking about, if they're gibberish, filler, marketees, you need to reorder your headline and put the keywords at the very front. If you look at the way that Google search results show up, it doesn't matter really what you do with your meta tag, they'll kind of excerpt the summary, the page summary from around the keywords. So you want to make sure that you're front loading those in the beginning of the content so that your excerpt will actually make sense. And my very favorite thing to harp on is login. I'm working on the identity project at Mozilla that's trying to reinvent login, and I was already passionate about it before I started doing that. I think there's security is theater is going on the internet. There's this concept that I have this site, and I need to have the user authenticate because it's about securing their data. It's actually not about securing their data. It's about recognizing the face of your friend so that you can call on your past experiences with them and ask them how their kids are doing. Like, it's exactly the same metaphor. And this session-based, we're going to keep your session for 24 hours. It's not secure at all. It doesn't address the public computer problem where you have, somebody's going to get on after you at the library, and it's a librarian like Scappoose, and they don't actually do their sessions right, and they're not clearing your data after you leave your session. The 24-hour session doesn't address that anyway. So persist user sessions forever. Forever, 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 ever, ever. Remember users forever. And the other thing is, cookies. If you can do something with a cookie, why are you requiring login in the first place? There's some great examples like TripIt that give you this gradual engagement platform. You can go start using their service. You don't even have to make a login at all. And then once you're convinced that this is really cool, you can go and claim your, okay, now this is my data. I don't want to lose it. I want to use it on my mobile phone or my other laptop, and have, okay, now I have a real account. But you can use TripIt forever. You can use Bitly. You never have to, do you have an account with Bitly? I finally made one, but you don't, it's a total success. And nobody needs an account at Bitly for it to be a worthwhile service. So delay your your Cookie Monster instant gratification need to get logins as soon as possible. You're going to be much more successful if you have a pattern of letting people come in and use your stuff. Remember, memory should die again. Remember your users forever. Just kill this box and remember everyone. That's it. Resources.